My name is Leo Park. I'm a financial institution senior specialist within the private sector facility of the Green Climate Fund. At the same time, I am also a PhD candidate in a university in Korea, and there is actually my supervisor professor in the audience, Professor Kim, and I also teach as an adjunct professor in a university. So I don't know, for those of you who may not be too familiar with the GCF, so we are the long-term financial mechanism of the UNFCCC. So our role is to give money to developing countries to help them to finance climate change mitigation and adaptation projects. So I was very glad when I read the report that for the first time you decided to dedicate a full chapter on finance, which I believe is a very important task. But sometimes it is still a bit I think undervalued. When we talk about the need to fight the climate change. And I was very glad when I heard the presentation. All of the presenters hit many of the sweet spots. You mentioned about the importance of de-risking the investments and providing the concessional funding to make the project more bankable, etc. And also I'd like to add that the capacity building is also very important. So there is always huge demand for capacity building, and we do try to address that by providing grants for technical assistance. And there was also mention about the behavioral change. Again, I fully agree that it is very important, but sometimes it's easier said than done. And you almost always need either provide incentives or penalize people to change their behaviors. So we try to do that, for example, within the GCF. So there's one example where we are helping a commercial bank in Mongolia called Hasbank, and we created a program called Energy Efficiency Consumer Loan Program. So basically what we will be doing is the GCF will provide concessional loan as well as grants through this commercial bank in Mongolia, and they will blend with their resources and provide more affordable interest to the end consumers, so that they have a financial incentive to change their less energy efficient older equipment. And we, at the same time, we provide additional grants to dismantle the older equipment. So we are trying to make impact across the full value chain. So that's one example that we're trying to do as well. And also I would like to highlight the importance of engaging with the banking sector. Not because I head up the financial institutions team, but the banks are the one who have the network and outreach to many of the corporates, especially small and medium-sized enterprises, as well as individual households and consumers, including those at the bottom of pyramids. So I can't remember which chapter exactly it was in the report, but it did say in the report that there was, for example, no clear scientific evidence on how banking sector will be affected by climate change in the report. Again, I don't know which chapter it was, but I did search it and I found out. But actually, there was a recent report published by the Bank of England, and then they did their own analysis in the UK, and they did identify that the climate change presents financial risks to the UK banking sector. So I think there could be a room for improvement. When you do another analysis in terms of finance, how, for example, the banking sector can be involved in helping, providing financing to the climate change project. And so, for example, there's an institution, there's a network that was recently set up called the Network for Greening the Financial System. And this is a network of the central banks around the world. Maybe there's a room for collaboration, right? And Secretariat is actually in France, it's bound to France, so maybe, it'd be easier for you to liaise with them. And again, I just want to highlight before I wrap up, the public sector alone cannot, finance all the, project, considering the investment, the magnitude that is needed to fight the climate change. So it's almost, I can say confidently, it will be impossible to fight this battle without engaging with the private sector. So, going forward, I hope to see how if IPCC can also dedicate a separate section on how to engage with the private sector, including banking sectors, etc. That will be very much appreciated from my perspective. And of course, I cannot speak on behalf of my organization, but I'll be more than happy to contribute to the IPCC report if I have a given chance. Thank you.